For all its beauty and splendor, the wilderness can be a cruel teacher. By its most basic definition, cliff diving is exactly what you would expect it to be based on the name. It is an extreme sport that involves highly trained athletes diving into the water from a very high, rocky cliff. This gives it a smilier allure than other extreme sports, including base jumping and rock climbing. This is why this activity should only be attempted by people who have been given the proper training and have gained the necessary experience that allows them to take part in the sport without injuring themselves. All others are cautioned to remain spectators, as it can take years to acquire the necessary skills to compete safely. Click the subscribe and like buttons. This is Outdoor Disasters. Shannon Falls is a provincial park located in British Columbia, Canada. At just over 1,110 feet, Shannon Falls is a very tall, imposing waterfall. The park offers picnicking and hiking to viewpoints through a beautiful old-growth forest to get to the base of the falls. Fed by Shannon Creek, which drains from the Stadium Glacier down the Sky Pilot Valley, Shannon Falls is particularly spectacular when fed by glacial meltwater in spring and summer. The water cascading down the granite cliff is visible and can be heard through the forest from some distance away. There is something very alluring about a waterfall. As outdoor writer Glenn Olin once wrote, "A waterfall is as much an event as a place, the motion and the sound of falling water, the thunderous roar and drenching spray, the smell of fresh water on laurel-scented air. These delights must be experienced firsthand. For untold ages, these places of wild splendor have beckoned from the ancient heights." For Megan Scraper, Riker Gamble, and Alexei Liak, the allure of the waterfall would have catastrophic consequences. Megan, Riker, and Alex, three Canadian social media celebrities, belong to High on Life Collective, an extreme YouTube travel channel. Riker and Alexei, both 30 years old, were best friends since childhood. Megan, 29, was a social media influencer in her own right and was dating Alexei. They posted videos from remote locations and preached a philosophy of living in the moment. The group has over 1 million Instagram followers and 600,000 YouTube subscribers. Their videos and photos consisted of them doing daring stunts in exotic locales. There's this common perception that as we grow older, we need to become more serious, Gamble wrote. Life throws responsibilities and big, tough decisions our way, and we need to act our age and work really, really hard. I find I lose a sense of myself when I get into this kind of headspace, because life isn't about responsibilities, tough decisions, and hard work. It's about feeling bliss and living in the moment. The group wasn't without controversy. In 2016, they took a road trip through America that led them through Yellowstone, where they illegally left the beaten path to film themselves near the Grand Prismatic Spring. A year later, based on their social media posts, American authorities charged them with a number of infractions for breaking the laws at a few different national parks. Ultimately, Gamble and Liak returned to Wyoming and were each sentenced to a week in jail, on top of paying thousands in fines. The pair were also banned from accessing U.S. public lands for 5 years. The Daredevil crew jumped off many cliffs around Canada and the world. Their stunts were known to be controversial, as many young teenagers will follow these social media accounts and could attempt to do similar stunts. Regardless, these social media stars continued to do the death-defying stunts, and the clicks and likes were piling up. July 3, 2018, their new target was a local and majestic waterfall, Shannon Falls. The waterfall is very accessible from nearby hiking trails and the sea to Sky Gondola. Riker's cousin Rob Mangelsdorf told the Canadian press he believed that the group simply went for a hike. They weren't doing anything silly. Apparently, the trio was going to take a dip in one of the many plunge pools that make up the waterfall system at Shannon Falls. Plunge pools tend to be carved out beneath waterfalls and can make good swimming spots, ending in a rock lip. At times of high flow, these pools can turn into torrents, and swimmers may find themselves forced against boulders or rocks at the pool exit, and held into it or fall over the ledge. Unbeknownst to them, the hotter temperatures that week made water flows more intense than usual. To get to the pools, you have to hike the Shannon Falls Pools Trail. On this trail, there are cliffs, steep elevation climbs, drop-offs, and slick areas near water. In some parts of this trail, climbing rope is available to help the hikers up. Danger is just a step away from the path. Shannon Falls Pools Trail is not a well-known official trail, but it's one used and loved by locals, and for a good reason. With picturesque cliffs, emerald pools, and close views of rushing Shannon Falls high up on the Sky Pilot Mountain with views of the Howe Sound, this stunning waterfall was too beautiful to pass up. Megan, Riker, and Alexi begin their trek up to the Shannon Falls pools. Although this was a somewhat dangerous trail, this was just a stroll in the park for the High on Life trio and their history of death-defying stunts. In the lust for clicks, likes, and followers, the High on Life daredevils are more than willing to risk injury or even death. The constant need for fresh content and competition among influencers can turn into something sinister. If their audience responds to a video of a stunt, the natural next step is to perform an even more extreme stunt to build on that prior success. After an hour's hike, they reach their destination. It was a warm 75 degrees Fahrenheit on that day, but after a 2-mile steep hike, the trio was ready to jump in the emerald pool to cool down and take some videos and photos. Unbeknownst to Megan, the rocks were wet and slick, but it's hard to tell that there was little traction. With rocks constantly sprayed with mist and little sunlight so moss can grow, it makes for a slippery combination. Megan steps on the rocks to get a better view. Scraper slips and falls from the rocks at the top of the waterfall. The current is strong, and Megan is heading toward the edge. Alexi, in shock at seeing his girlfriend's pending death, jumps in to save her. They're both struggling. Riker, seeing his friends in danger, jumps in as well. They were no match for the strong current, and over the ledge of the waterfall the trio went, falling 100 feet below. None of them survived. Witnesses from the bottom watched them as they tumbled and bounced all the way down, and the water turned red. The scene where they fell was gruesome. Even in his final act on this earth, he was trying to save the life of his very best friend, Riker's cousin, Rob Mangelsdorf, said. He'd known Alexi his whole life since they were little kids. They were inseparable, absolutely inseparable, their whole lives. Rescue and recovery crews had to drop down from helicopters to access the steep terrain to recover the bodies. It is a very strong current. It is not a place anyone should ever go close to, even if there's a trail going right down to it, Squamish Search and Rescue Commander Landon James said. The news of the death of the trio reached worldwide, and many people on social media offering condolences to the popular daredevils. In a video posted to YouTube a few days later, members of the High on Life collective, some with tears in their eyes, delivered a tribute to Scraper, Liak, and Gamble. They were 3 of the warmest, kindest, most driven, and most outgoing people that you could meet, and the world has lost a great deal of light with their passing. They lived every single day to its fullest. They stood for positivity, courage, and living the best life that you can, and they shared and taught their values to millions of people worldwide. There is nothing quite like a waterfall. The way the water falls, so free and easy and inevitable. There is no pattern, and even though our eyes constantly search for patterns in everything, we will never really find one in a waterfall. So, our sense of sight is stimulated. The power of the water that is discharged from high above is without measure and simply dangerous to any who ventures too close. By definition, waterfalls are steep with vertical cliffs or slopes that are fatal if you fall off them or are swept over the waterfall themselves. Waterfalls are dangerous, but there's nothing inherently hazardous about them. A waterfall doesn't reach out and grab people and fling them over the top. The reason people get hurt at waterfalls is that they put themselves in dangerous situations. Nearly all waterfall accidents could be avoided by understanding the potential dangers and taking them seriously. If there is white water, if the water is foaming or disturbed by rocks or falling a distance, then you lose buoyancy. White water is water mixed with air, and air bubbles have less density than water. So you lose your buoyancy in it, are affected by gravity much more, and may very well sink. If you're not experienced, that's the kind of thing that can make you panic. And panicking can get you into trouble. If forced down by a waterfall, it may be instinctive to try to swim against the current and back up through the bubbles. But you have to exit that stream of air-filled fluid sideways and then swim to the surface. The power of the water varies with the flow rate, and when flow rates increase, it gets heavier. Be aware of that. Each time you get in, you have to judge, how is it on this day, at this minute? When a river is in high flow, it is increasingly likely that rocks and tree debris could tip over a waterfall. Fluctuating water levels mean that a popular jumping spot can become fatal if river levels have dropped, and currents can move underwater rocks. Every episode of jumping needs its own risk assessment. The fact that it's a popular jumping spot or that others have been seen jumping there before is no assurance of safety. The higher the jump, the deeper the water necessary beneath it. Please consider these risks so you can prevent an outdoor disaster.